Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Dewey, Dailey, along with John Bruce for today's episode 18 of the show, coming down the stretch here in the fall season. We'll take a look back on Week 8 as well as look forward to Week 9. Some great games coming up on the slate, and we'll take a look at a couple impact players along the way. And we'll actually take a look at a couple other games that have some playoff implications as we're just a few weeks away from the draw. And, should be a fun episode here on, it's Week 9 of the show.
So this should be a fun one. It's getting closer to the playoffs, which also means it's championship time in a lot of conferences. We're not even going to talk about the MSL, but their pretty much conference championship game is this week with Hamilton Township and Bloom Carroll.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, if Hamilton Township can upset Bloom Carroll, then Logan Elm's still got a chance to
get a share.
Yeah, to get a share. So
not over.
So that's a game we're not even going to discuss because they're technically out of our coverage area. So
So we'll take a look back on two games from last week, both of which are, at least one of them is probably a league title, and then the other one is about as close as you can get without technically being one, as it's one of those conferences where it's kind of a three-man race towards the finish. And we'll actually start with that game, Unioto and Zane Trace. The final officially was 27-14, but anybody that watched knows it was really a one-score game at 21-14, as Cade Cutright had a 70-plus, 65, 70-yard pick six to end the game.
I had scored it at 88 yards,
88?
but when I watched it was closer to 84.
84. I didn't realize it was that deep. He was on his own 16.
Yeah, so Langley got a lot on it on the throw, but he got hit as he threw, as he was trying to...
he was going back.
Yeah, he was trying to get out of bounds, and Cade Cutright just as a ball hawk with his fifth interception of the season, his third pick six. He's got...
It's pretty good return.
He's got
percentage.
3 pick six. He's got a punt return for a touchdown. He also has scored or caught 8 touchdown passes on the year. So Cade Cutright is he's a scorer.
Mm-hmm. And, this game was, it was more ground and pound than I think. Obviously for Zane Trace, you kind of expected that, especially with the quarterback injury problems they've had so far this season. But a little bit more ground pound for Unioto. We've seen Ethan Summer come on a little bit as of late. Wasn't really somebody they leaned on early on in the season, as it was Reinhardt and I think Mills and then Dawson kind of started sliding. I think his first big game was I don't think he had a whole lot of run those first 2 weeks, and then had a pretty nice game against Waverly. And then we've seen Summer come along. I think his first kind of game was Piketon, right? He showed out against Piketon and had a
he only had like 6 carries going into that game. Now one thing you can say about that though is that means those guys are fresh. It's where they're not getting the pounding every week that some other running backs are. So Summer, I would assume that he's going to be a big part of the game plan for them again this week. But he came on strong, had another big game for them, scored in the third and just had some really hard runs.
100 yards.
The game started off with a bang with Ashton Crace returning the opening kickoff 90 yards for a touchdown. Looked like he was going to get pushed out, but was able to...
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, was able to make a move, got to the sideline, and and just beat every Pioneer to the end zone for a big score for Unioto. Then Aiden Dunn with a nice kickoff return got them to right around the 50 for the Pioneers, and they went down in 14 plays and scored, and was 7-7, and we didn't see any more scoring until the second half. It felt like, we might be in for a, kind of a shootout, but it was more or less a knockdown, drag-out fight.
And also, was it that game where I think Hanks attempted like a 45-yard field goal?
So it
was long.
It was late in the second quarter. Zane Trace tried I think we thought it was going to be a 43-yarder. It ended up being like a 40-yarder because they did a shorter snap on it. Just didn't get it there. I think really if he had a little more time, like Unioto has a good rush on the kicks, so I think they were trying to avoid getting it blocked. But really that went into one of those rules that I forgot about is, miss field goal. If it goes in the end zone, it's to the 20. So
really?
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
So it was like a punt, really. So you might as well try to get the 3. But yeah, Carter Langley played for Zane Trace. Is really the first time really since week 3 that he'd been full go, and you couldn't tell that he'd been injured, but he played really well. They got into the kind of the passing downs late, and that's where Unioto was able to do a lot more, able to get after him, but he ran for 2 touchdowns in the game. Just overall, it was really good atmosphere. Unioto scored they never trailed in the game. They scored to take a 14-7 lead in the second half with the Ethan Summer run, and then Langley tied it at 14. Then Unioto looked like they were almost driving to set up for possibly a game-winning field goal. I think St. Trace was down to 1 timeout. And then after Unioto gets inside the 12-yard line, the snap goes over Newton Hoops' head, has to down it, and then the next play he's able to roll out to his left and hit Cade Cutright in double coverage. And if you saw the Londonderry Lens video of it, he had a great view of it to where it looked like it was really into tight coverage, but really Hoops led him back inside, and it was actually kind of an easier catch than it looked like, especially from our angle. So
it looked like
still,
a circus catch.
Yeah, still a really
top.
nice play by Cutright. To take the 21-14 lead, then St. Trace drives, but gets tackled inbounds with, about 12, 14 seconds left and had to rush for the last play. Will Fleck gets a body on Langley, and that's when Cutright was able to pick that off for his second score of the night and second within the last 3 minutes of the contest.
And then one other game. This one was, I would say, quite literally the SOC1 championship, as both teams are, I believe, playing teams that are all under 500 in the season.
Eastern still has South Gallia, who has a good record, but
yeah.
Notre Dame put it on them. So I think, as long as they just go take care of business, they'll be all right.
So Eastern takes the win over Notre Dame 31-28 in Spartan Municipal Stadium. A quick stat sheet report. Dylan Morton, who is also the kicker, which we'll get into a little bit here in a second. 16 of 30 for 230 yards, 4 touchdowns. Also had 61 rushing yards. Landon Rhinesmith had 43 yards on 13 carries. Also had 85 receiving yards on 3 catches. Had 2 receiving touchdowns as well. And then Tegan Warner and Jace White both with receiving touchdowns. Tegan Warner 5 catches for 85 yards, and White had 3 for 23. Now for Notre Dame, they're at Sims Valley this week. Ethan Kingery was 23 of 35, threw for 314 yards, had 3 touchdowns. Eugene Collins and Bryce McGraw both had receiving touchdowns. Chris Piccolo also had one as well. And then Jordan Davis, a player that I know you didn't get to see in person, but when we were down there for the match against Eastern, he was a big impact player for him then. Not as many yards on the ground as he had in that game, but still had 63 yards and a touchdown. Now, this game, if you didn't keep up with it, I know we checked it at halftime and was like, oh, it's over. Because it's at Notre Dame. They were leading 22-6 with just a couple seconds. I think it was like not a couple, but there was like 40-some seconds to go in the first half. And Eastern went down and scored in those 40 seconds, and they actually got the 2-point conversion. So that cut it to 22-14 at the break. And then Eastern was able to tie it back up at 22-all. And then actually Morton knocked down a 23-yard field goal, which I don't feel like you see quarterbacks knocking down field goals all too often. But, from being down 22-6, they went on a little 19-0 run stemming from the last few seconds of the first half into the second, actually had a 25-22 lead. And then that's where Chris Piccolo, a player who, once again, we saw, I think he had 2 touchdown catches in the loss to Eastern in week 4. This time he had a 52-yard touchdown reception that put them back up. However, the 2-point attempt was no good, so that left it at 28-25. And then with about a minute 28 to go, trailing 28-25, Eastern went on a little 6-play, 70-yard drive in 34 seconds. Ooh. So a quick and efficient drive for the Eagles. It was capped off by I think it was a 29 or 30-yard receiving touchdown by Tegan Warner, and that pretty much put it on ice, and they completed the comeback after being down 22-6. They go, what would that be? 22-3 or
25-6
or 25-6 to end the game.
Yeah, pretty good run there for the Eagles.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong score. Yeah, 25-6
yeah,
to
you're
end the
good.
game.
So Eastern, they won it last year. Kind of came out of nowhere to win the SOC one, and it looks like they're in really good position this year again if they can beat South Gallia coming up here in week 9, which I believe they're kind of heavy. I think it's like 19 points on Fantastic 50. They'll win it again this year, but they are already at the school record for wins, which we discussed last week on how impressive it is that their program's at the point that it is at this point. But yeah, it looks like they are in line for the 1 seed in their region, which is kind of funny because the other Eastern will end up being the 2 seed.
Yeah.
That did beat Notre Dame. But for some reason, when I was looking at it originally, I was like, I feel like Eastern beat Eastern, but it was Notre Dame that Eastern beat. So
Notre Dame's had some troubles with Eastern.
Yeah, they're not big on the directional schools, but yeah, so nothing to hang their heads out for Notre Dame is they'll still they are clinched a playoff spot, and they'll have a chance to possibly get revenge in a couple weeks into the playoffs.
All right, so we'll look now at a couple of impact players that either played well, or we even had one college commit that I think committed like a day after we filmed last week's episode.
Yes,
So it
was like 30 minutes after like I got home.
Oh, really? So it was the same
it was
day.
the same day.
Yeah, I knew it was like really close, and it was like if he would have posted that just like 5 hours ago, we would have got it last week. So this is a little bit of old news, but because it was obviously at this point when we're recording this, it was well over a week ago. But this is our first time back in the studio since then. But Jackson's Cade Wolford commits to Kent State, a future
Golden Flash. Yeah, the Golden Flashes. He's kind of a do-it-all player for the Ironman. That's good mascots.
Ironman, the Golden Flash.
Yeah.
Is it just a lightning? I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
it's
the
just
Golden Flash,
lightning
but I
bolt.
didn't know if it was like a dude throwing it or something. Or
No, I don't know if they have the like stand-up mascot like how Akron has the
Zip.
the zip is the kangaroo. But if they do, it's probably like the Charger Man that the San Diego Superchargers had for a while.
Who's the San Diego Superchargers?
They just called them the Superchargers.
Oh,
It's the Chargers.
okay.
And he did not go along with them to LA, sadly. So Charger Man or Bolt Man was his name. Yeah. So so Cade Wolford, really, really impressive athlete, really good baseball player too. He should be able to make an impact. Maybe not immediately at Kent State because it's pretty hard to do so as a true freshman. But
right. I mean,
I could see him a couple years down the road making a big impact for the Golden Flashes.
Well, I think most of the time when you go D1, I mean, it's almost a guarantee you're going to get redshirted probably your freshman year, especially like when you have a play. Like it's almost like not an honor. That's probably not the right word, but like if I would like, you would almost want to get redshirted because like they see something in you and like they're trying to save you so they can get as many years out of you as they can. So I would say probably expect a red shirt their first year. But I think you can still play like a certain number.
You can
of
play
snaps.
4 games.
4 games. Yeah, because I knew like I can't. Maybe it may have been Tate Martell. Maybe was redshirted and he played in a couple of games. So or maybe it may have been Burrow as well. I can't remember.
I'm sure Burrow got an extra year from it because he didn't play very much. But so I had a buddy that I went to school with, and when he went to college, he didn't play at all his freshman year. And he did not get redshirted, and that's when we all went, "Oh, that sucks," because we knew he wasn't, really part of the long-term goals. And then, of course, he was a starter as a junior, and that's when we were kind of like, "Well, that's what you get for not redshirting him," because could have had him for a couple of years, but then he just.
Can you not redshirt after is redshirt the only time you can? Or sorry, is your freshman year the only year you can redshirt?
No, I don't think so. I think you can redshirt other years as well, but that's just the most common one.
Oh, right. Yeah. Get it out of the way.
Yeah. Now, medical you can do whenever, in case there's an injury or hardship or something that happens. Now, there could be a hardship. There could, like, I don't want to make light on a situation, but like you could have a hardship where you have someone in your family die. So then typically the person moves closer to home, except for someone that has been in our coverage area at some point. This is years ago, actually moved like 600 miles away for their hardship. Like, I think they were just looking for a way out of the school. Yeah. So, but yeah, congratulations to Cade, and I'm sure he'll do great up there.
Yep. And then a couple other impact players, just not one. It's 2 big-time players up at Westfall, and Bryce, Wickline, and Trent Walters.
Yeah, on their 56-10 win over Adina. Holy cheese. Like, yeah. I like Trent Walters is I guess the lesser of the two in the stats in this, with 7 receptions for 196 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's because Bryce Wickline was 11 of 21 for 368 yards, 6 touchdowns. Oh, and he ran for 48 yards and a rush touchdown as well. So out of their, what is that, 8 touchdowns, he accounted for 7 of them. And then I know that they had a score from the backup quarterback came in as well. But I believe Cade Hall also had 100 yards receiving. Joey Wright was close to 100 yards receiving. It was just an insane game for the Westfall offense, as they are clinging to the possibility of Week 10 giving them an outside chance at making the playoffs. So really impressive performance. Wickline's had, I'm going to update the SVC stats for Friday. I guess today's show. They'll be out today, and his numbers are just insane. And whenever he's been able to limit turnovers like he was able to do in this game, he's able to put up big time numbers.
I mean, I feel like anytime your average yards per completion is over, it's 33.5 yards. That's insane. I mean, that's actually ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very, very impressive on that. For some reason, I couldn't think of that off the top of my head.
The math?
Yeah.
I just sat here and I typed it in.
No, you didn't. You did it on your own, all in that noggin of yours. But, so Wickline, I believe, is at the top of the SVC in passing yardage. I think he just passed Newt Hoops for that. So that's, those two are probably going to be head-to-head for the next 2 weeks on that. And, that's something to look for in the SVC.
And then some games that we're not necessarily previewing, but just looking at the playoff implications that come with these games. One of them actually going to be our live stream of the week. But first, we'll talk about Valley at Grandview Heights.
Yeah, Lucasville Valley started off the year. It didn't seem very possible, like they would have a chance to make the playoffs. They're playing at 5-3 Grandview Heights. It's actually a really nice field. I think they only have bleachers on one side. They might have it on 2 sides, but it's... Okay, so Grandview Heights and New Boston are both towns within a bigger city. New Boston's inside of the city limits of Portsmouth, and Grandview Heights is in Columbus. So Grandview Heights, a nice campus and everything. They're 5-3 Valley. If you want to look up what I think it's a 9-point. I think it's 9 points on Fantastic 50.
The line.
Yeah, the line. And
what Valley D6?
Yes, Region 24, I think. They could be Region 23. But yeah, Valley, if they win, I believe that would put them at 3 wins, and I believe that would almost put them into the playoffs, wouldn't it? Do you have
they're not. They're getting, so Grandview Heights is a 9-point favorite.
Yeah. So, but Grandview Heights hasn't played a great schedule.
They're down 25 next week against Menford.
Right. So this is a must win for them to get in the playoffs.
Can you get in the playoffs with 3 wins?
Oh yeah, you can get in the playoffs with 1 win. That's pretty much Division 1 though.
If you beat the best team on your
So my brother was telling me about I think it was Olentangy Liberty. He was like, man, they're good. And right now they're like the 14 seed in Columbus with like 2 wins.
I was going to look to see what Valley's playoff percentage was.
It's not very high right now.
I didn't figure so. I know they're not on, because they kind of have like the locks or near locks, and then contenders, strong contenders, fringe contenders, like Southeastern's a long shot in that region with less than a 2% chance at 1-7.
So right now they're 53% playoff chances for Valley, with a 2% chance to have a home game, which is insane.
You said 50?
53. If you go to their page, they're 53%. They need to finish 3-7, so they have to win one of the next 2 weeks. And if they would do so, they would be a 100% lock into the playoffs. Yeah. So, and if they would happen to somehow win both games, they would get a home game.
It also says 30. So even if they were just to win this week and lose, which, like, I'm assuming Menford probably beats them
Right.
if everybody's healthy, they still have a 31% chance to get in.
Yeah.
Just going 1-1 over the next 2 weeks. So, I'd say this week's definitely a must-win for Valley.
Yeah, so that's one of the fun parts about the amount of teams getting in is you can say, well, it's kind of started off as a rough season. Starting off 0-5, win 2 of your last 3, and if you win 3 of those 4, you're going to get in the playoffs. I mean, the most important part of that would be the extra week of practice. It's not so much and probably the experience of getting to go play in the playoff game, but you're going to be a very, very long shot in that situation. But, you get that extra week of practice, especially for such a young team that Valley has, can only help them in the future. So, that's a score to look for.
I will say the only time they were favored this year, they did cover.
There we go.
Cover the spread against Oak Hill.
There we go. They were losing late in the first half of that. Actually, I think they were losing at the half.
13.
I think it was 13-7 at the half.
Really?
Yeah. And then 40-13 final.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Oak, it's been a tough year for
the Oaks. But it sounds like they're going to play this week.
They were favored in their first game against Wellston. Lost 12-9.
Yeah.
They were favored by 12.
It sounds like they're going to play this week, which is a good thing. And then they would play Northwest in week 10. So, I know a lot of people on like SEO Preps were giving them a hard time about,
picking
and choosing, but it sounds like it's just been up to health because
Right.
I mean, they played Waverly. It's not. I think if you're going to pick and choose games, you would avoid playing Waverly.
Well, I mean, especially like what it looked like was going to happen. I mean, when we were having Brock on here, which that was weeks like
3 and 4.
3 and 4. I mean, we were talking about them just bagging the whole
Right.
season, and they've played all but 2 games over that stretch. So, I mean, I think anything more than not playing anything at all was going to be bonus, especially because I mean, like. And I'm with you. I've seen like some of the stuff people were saying, like, oh, if you have 11 guys you can play, it's like, okay, come on now. Like, if we have a bunch of underclassmen that have never even played varsity football, are we really just going to trot 11 of those guys out there to play Wheelersburg?
There is a safety element to it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and it's just like, and I know they were talking about like, well, they should have to pay the revenue lost for the game and whatnot, and I mean, I get that, but.
Yeah, that's the tough part is you do lose some revenue off of losing home game.
Yeah.
So I get the frustration there. So moving on to our next game with playoff implications is going to be our streaming game, which will feature the Pointers of South Point.
First time this year?
Yeah, first time this year. They will be at Portsmouth. Second time this year for us at Portsmouth.
First in a while, though.
Yes, they were our very first game of the season. So it's South Point at Portsmouth. It's a big game for playoff implications, for seeding, for South Point especially, because South Point seems like they are already going to be in. Let me pull this up real quick. They have made the playoffs twice. Once was 2020. So, I mean, really it's once because at that season that was kind of, you want to play in the playoffs? Okay, come on.
First playoff win ever.
Yeah. Hey, take it.
Oh, God, I have to.
Yeah.
Have to.
It's still the only one right now.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't look like that's going to be the case a whole lot longer.
Yeah.
But you never know. It's always a possibility you draw the best 13 seed of all time or whatever they were at 12. I can't remember, but yeah. Yeah,
for the Pointers, they've lost their last 10 games against the Trojans, and that's just going back to 2000. I'm not, I don't have the records for before that, but they've lost the last 10 times, but I believe they're favored. They're actually a 1-point underdog in this game.
Okay, I knew it was 1 point. I just didn't know which way it was going.
Yeah, so right now, if South Point loses their last 2, they are 99% into the playoffs. So something incredibly wild would have to happen for them to not get in if they would lose their last 2. For the Trojans, if they win this week, because, sorry, Trojan fans, you're probably not winning week 10 against Ironton.
Right.
If they win, they will be, let me see, it'll be a 90% chance.
Who did you say was favored? Portsmouth is favored?
Portsmouth's favored by 1. So if Portsmouth wins, they are 90% into the playoffs. So more than likely a win for the Trojans and both teams get in the playoffs. Now they would be right now like the 15 seed, but once again, young team, get an extra week.
Because Highland's only a junior, I believe.
Yeah,
and I think
most of their skill
Cobb's a
guys.
senior. I think Copley may have only been
He's
junior
a
as well. So
Yep.
they've got a lot coming back. A freshman quarterback.
Yeah, and his brother, I think, might be coming back from injury. JT, which is only a junior. So, I mean, he's a really good athlete. They've got a couple other really good athletes that I know are going to be back for next year. So it's
Well, I know Highland. I don't know exactly how many games, but I know his name was missing from the box score at least 1 week, maybe 2 or 3. So, I mean, I'm sure that. I think that was like weeks 3, 4, maybe 2, 3, 4, something like that. I know he missed a game or 2 in there, and obviously after the win over Valley, they did get a win. No, they lost 2 straight and then took down Rock Hill. And I think that was one of those failed.
Right?
One of those failed 2-point conversion instances, but.
They gave themselves a chance when they won that big time game against Colgrove, that 14-6 game where their defense really stood up. So they've given themselves a chance, and that should be a fun game for us to get down. It's a beautiful stadium, really good hospitality as well. So, really excited to get down to Portsmouth and cover that game.
Yeah, I mean they're coming off of a loss against Fairland. However, they did cover the spread.
Yes.
So, for what that's worth.
Good teams win, great teams cover.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's always
seriously. Don't gamble on high school sports. It's just
it's just a fun way to. How they have like the fantasy teams. Like I've never done this, but I know some people will. Where like you basically play 2 games each week, and like one is against your opponent, then one is against the league average in scoring. So like. If you beat somebody like 100 to 90 or something, but the league average was 120, then you would go 1-1 that week. I feel like that's kind of how they're like they lost, but they covered the spread.
Yeah.
But it should be a fun game. It's always nice to take a trip down to. I would say one of the better places to watch a football game. It's right on the southern end of our coverage area.
Yes.
It should be hopefully a lot more. Competitive than although the Valley game was competitive pretty much up until the second half. That's when it started to get a little bit away from Valley. But hopefully this one, I mean, it's a 1-point spread, and I'd say those projections are a lot more accurate than in the early weeks. I mean, we're talking about week 9 now, so whatever simulations they're doing have 8 weeks of data to go off of. So just hope we can have a fun time down in Portsmouth on an actual Friday.
Let's have fun.
Yeah, let's have fun in week 9. So, some game previews for the upcoming week. We've got a handful, obviously all league games at this point in the season. First one is Miami Trace at Hillsboro, a team that has kind of come on a little bit this year, and we've kind of talked about them a pretty good amount, although we haven't directly talked about them winning a lot of games, although I think now they're 4-4 overall.
They are 4-4. They are 99% in.
Well,
with 4 wins.
I think I even said it's not really a joke, but I think I even said this last time we talked about them. We've probably talked more positively about their losses than we have their actual wins. Now, I know we highlighted their big win over Courthouse when they got that one, but for the most part, it's been like, man, they're hanging around with a lot of these like high-profile teams. Like they scored, 49-34 against Portsmouth West, and West. I've said it 100 times. One of the better like, if I'm being honest, I would probably, and I've seen them in person, which has a little bit of bias over teams that I haven't seen in person. But like over the teams I have seen, just like without thinking too hard, I would think that's probably like a top 3 or 4 defense I have seen in person.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's by far, well, I won't say by far the most points because they gave up 32 to Fairland. So, but they gave up 32 to Fairland, 34 to Hillsboro, 21 to Waverly. Everything else has been 14 or lower.
Right. And then, big game week 10. Probably won't be able to make it down there to Wheelersburg for that. I'm going to try. I'm going to try every way, way possible.
You got to make a call. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
All they can do is say no. That's okay.
Hopefully they don't they're not too mean. But.
Yeah. But, so both teams are going to be in the playoffs. Both are this is really weird. I don't understand the region lines because they're in two separate regions. Like,
What, Miami, Trace, and Hillsboro?
yeah, like two different regions. Like, I don't understand why they're not in the
They're
same.
pretty far apart.
Yeah, but it's kind of on the same.
On the same center line. But I mean, they're like
Yeah.
distance-wise, they're
Yeah, I guess
probably
Hillsboro's more Cincinnati.
yeah. I mean, they're probably close to an hour apart.
You got your computer out? Let's get those. We did this in the first episode of the
I
week.
think we did it twice.
Yeah,
Miami Trace to Hillsboro.
but yeah,
Washington Courthouse to Hillsboro.
they've got Miami Trace is 13-point favorite in this game, but
40 minutes.
40 minutes. Yeah,
It's not as far as
it's probably not the easiest drive either.
it's a pretty straight line.
Actually, because you can go to Wilmington and then go up.
This one has you just going splitting. See, it just has you going right down. It's pretty straight, actually. I'm not gonna get up and show the camera my screen.
I just remember when I was at Wilmington thinking it was like, oh man, this is gonna be a long trip, and like nothing was long at all. Everything was similar to that, and then like the next year they got kicked out of the league.
It actually says if you left right now, you could get there in about 37 minutes.
Ooh, no traffic.
Light traffic.
Yeah, so should be a good game. It's Hillsboro's got a really cool setting for the game. Miami Trace, I think they technically have an outside chance to win the FAC. This is an elimination game, we'll say, in the FAC. Jackson would have to severely stub their toe in the last 2 weeks, but
Who do they have? They have McLean and then like Chillicothe. Oh yeah, Chillicothe.
yeah, they have McLean and Chillicothe.
And both of those are at home.
So
that would be
favored by 39 and 37. So,
yeah.
so I said severely stub their toe, but yeah, it's it's technically an elimination
Not
game.
over yet.
Yeah, the winner.
The door's still open.
Yeah,
Not by
winner
much,
stays
but-
in. Yeah, so should be an interesting game. We talked about possibly streaming that one at one point, and so
we talked. I think we settled on our fourth game on the list. We went through. We had a pretty long check down. Through the list this week.
Yeah, you have to kind of. It's just where you can go, where you can get internet, and where the people are good too. So that helps.
Yeah.
Like so that Portsmouth treats you well, and it's
that
should be a big game. Like I'm excited for that game.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean it's two teams that like I know we've live streamed Portsmouth once this year, but like outside of that, don't get down there a whole lot. I mean, I can't think of another game that I think we actually had a writer at their game last week because I think I remember seeing an interview with I think it was like Highland and Copley maybe were the two players in it. So the OVC is sometimes tough to get down to just because like for most of us the distance. I know we have Tyler Harris down there who does a lot of Fairland, and I think I've seen him with Colgrove and Chesapeake a few times. But the OVC I think is the farthest out of our area. And, like some of the FAC schools that are towards Cincinnati are as well. But yeah, it's always a fun trip. A lot of those places have nice. I mean, I was just looking
Really
at a
nice
video
facilities.
from Chesapeake where I've never been, and I just thought that looked like. And Colgrove looks like they have a nice place. Never been to Fairland. I've seen pictures from Gallia, but once we get back to Fairland looks like they have a nice place. Obviously, Ironton don't really need to say anything. Don't really need to say anything about.
Well, they're
that.
getting out of there anyway. So
Yeah.
at least in football.
But I can't think of who I'm possibly. I think I got everybody, unless I.
Did you say Gallia?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I think you got everybody.
Because I know Carson's. I believe the way Carson described it wasn't like the biggest, but like the atmosphere was unmatched in comparison to other places, which I believe. I mean, Gallia's a pretty big. I feel like they're a very proud school.
Blue Devils.
Yeah. And then another game that was honestly kind of leading the charge is our game we even talked about a little bit last week. We were hoping to be able to live stream this one this week. This is Vinton County at Nelsonville-York, the TVC Ohio Championship at I think it was Dave Boston Field. A really nice complex down in Nelsonville, and really, I mean, should be a good game. Both teams are undefeated in the TVC. They're 7-1 overall. One common opponent that these two teams have is Trimble, and that was kind of the only question mark for me going in is Trimble actually lost to Vinton County 20-6. and they're Trimble's 4-3 on the year, so they're kind of a middle of the pack team. And the other side in the TVC Hawking, but in week 1 picked up a 14-12 win over Nelsonville-York, and actually played them back to back. So they beat Nelsonville 14-12 in week 1, and then lose 20-6 to Vinton County in week 2. So that's really the only common opponent is Trimble, and obviously some of the teams within the league. I just meant out of the league.
Yeah, but one thing is really after that, it's Nelsonville hasn't had any trouble. And speaking of not having trouble, Vinton County has not had trouble.
0.
Yeah, since week 1, which came down to a KB Perkins blocked extra point
Over with Unioto
from
team
Unioto
that is looking to win their first gold ball ever.
Yeah, so that's 2 teams that are 7-1. They win in week 2, 19-8. Then they beat Trimble 20-6. So it was actually week 3. And then 54-0, 35-13, 62-0, 33-0, 69-12. So they are just.
Okay, well, Trimble did not play a week 2 game.
Yeah, that's why.
Because they had Vinton County or they had Nelsonville and Vinton County back to back, so they just skipped out on one of the non-conference games.
It was like one of the teams they were supposed to play might have not had football this year. So that might have been why. But yeah,
Gloucester.
I've went to a game there, and it was so cool. It was a Saturday night game. They were playing Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy.
Maybe that's who it was.
Yeah, a couple kids that I coached were playing for Cincinnati Hills. So I was like, I'll just go down there on a Saturday, and they come in it's different. They were I don't even know where their locker room was, but they come marching into Johnny Cash's "Nobody Can Hold Me Down." Made me think of the Undertaker, and it was just they come walking down the sideline as they're coming in. There's not that many people there because it's not that big of a community, but that whole place was so loud. And it was their first game that they had new bleachers, and it was really cool. So NCHC won because extra points matter. But yeah, so this one, Parker Schonborn has done a really good job. Garrett Brown for Vinton County. They've really just put up a lot of points defensively. I mean, the 69-12 to River Valley, I'm assuming they probably cleared the bench pretty early in that.
Yeah.
Especially with a big game here.
I mean, the past 2 weeks as well. 62-0 over Alexander. No, that was Athens and Alexander that have a rivalry game with soccer.
Yeah, the Athens game was kind of close, and then I think Schonborn might have had 2 pick sixes to end the game. And I mean, other than that, they've given up 12 points in kind of mop up time against River Valley, but 13 points against Athens and not giving up a point besides that in TVC play. Really impressive, by Coach Carper's defense there for Vinton County. Should be a big time game at Nelsonville-York. I think their last win against them was 2018. That's not necessarily a rivalry that they do particularly well in. In their last 15, they're 2-13 against Nelsonville. Yeah, but last year, their last game was a 21-20 loss. So they've been really tight lately. Nelsonville is an extremely proud program. They're one of those. They remind me of a Paint Valley where they are a smaller school in their conference, but it doesn't matter because those kids are raised to play football. And they're very good football. Every once in a while, they'll have a step back, but for the most part, Nelsonville is a very impressive school. They went 11-2 last year, 109-54 in the last 15 seasons coming into this year. Really, just their only opponent that is really even that they play is Trimble, which now is 8-8, or it's 8-8 over the last 16 contests. So, other than that, they pretty much have dominated the TVC outside of when old Joey B was at Athens. That kind of, that leaned a little more towards the Bulldogs.
I don't know what it is this year. I remember watching the Unioto film, but I can't remember what was on the 50-yard line. But just on Max Preps, it's showing me highlights of last year's game against Nelsonville-York. Do you know what they had on the 50-yard line?
What?
Well, it's not ridiculous. It was just an outline of Vinton County on a map, and I think that's one of the cooler one of the cooler, because you'd think it would be like the VC thing, but they just have the outline of like the trace of Vinton County, like it would be on a map on there. I think that's pretty cool.
Did you buy a Vinton County #1 in Ohio shirt? It's 2020. They were the last county to have a verified COVID case in 2020.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they had like, I don't know if they were like real t-shirts or joke t-shirts, but it was like someone made a t-shirt design. It had the county logo on it. And it was like #1 in Ohio for least amount of COVID cases.
All right, then we have 2 more games to watch for in week 9. Another one that has pretty big league implications. Not sure how close it will be, but some people are a little more optimistic.
Such a crazy thing to say.
Some people are a little more optimistic than I am. Ironton at Gallia here in week 9. Kind of the last chance for Ironton to stub their toes. They have a game with Portsmouth the next week, which, although Portsmouth has some talented guys, not sure if they'll be able to hang around with Ironton. I believe that game is at Ironton as well, so that only makes it a little bit tougher. This game is at Gallia, and, for Gallia, if they can pull this off, they'll have a share. It'll be a 3-way tie with them, Fairland, and Ironton in the OVC.
Yeah, so Ironton's Twitter today, I think, threw up something like either like the explosion thing, because I'm assuming that means Sean Terry got another Big Ten offer.
Probably.
Because I think he's going to Michigan after this game to watch the Wolverines. Like that dude he's showing out this year for the Fighting Tigers, and it's paying off for him and some big time offers, or at least visits for the most part for him. But yeah, so Fantastic 50 has Ironton as the 4th ranked team in Division 5, #2 in the region, which is just because Harvest Prep is also in the region. But outside of their game, lost to Cable Midland, who's undefeated in the big school division in West Virginia. They have just utterly dominated. They've given up some points on occasion, so not really throwing the shutouts out there. I think it's 1 shutout so far on the season for them on their going away tour.
The farewell tour.
Yeah, their farewell tour of the OVC. But yeah, it's been a really impressive season for Ironton, when I think not many people thought it was going to be a step back, but with losing as many players as they did, possibly a step back. Now for Gallia, they've put up a lot of points this year, led offensively by Braylon Rathburn, Kenyon Franklin. They have him listed as an athlete. It's because he can just kind of go wherever on the field. If you've seen him in basketball, that ain't no lie on the athlete. And the Hudson Hunter Shamblin. It's a dynamic offense. I don't know if they can keep up with Ironton, but I mean, this is more or less a league championship game. So, it's one to watch for sure.
And then one final game. This one is, once again, pretty big league implications. Unioto at Paint Valley down in, I was going to say down in the valley, but it's kind of the same word in just a couple sentences. Down in Bainbridge, Unioto at Paint Valley, the final 2 undefeated teams within the SVC.
Yeah, okay, this is going to be depressing. We've got the Unioto helmet here. Unioto's last SVC championship was a share in 1998. Ben Hartsock, a 10-year NFL veteran, was still in high school at the time. They actually lost a game that year. They lost to Brian White and Adina. Brian White's kids actually go to Unioto now. But then they ended up going down to Piketon and beating them, and Piketon beat Adina, and I think Paint Valley might have got Piketon that year. But yeah, so that was
all over the place.
Yeah, so that was the last SVC title for Unioto. Their last SVC title that was not shared was 1983. Ya boy wasn't alive yet. So, if I wasn't alive, that's a long time ago. Yeah. So, a lot to play for Unioto. They're favored, I think, just by a point on Fantastic 50. Braylon Robertson and Preston Fauber have done a really good job on the Paint Valley offensive attack, especially in the running game. Carson Free has just been a standout, like he typically is, at the wide receiver position for the Bearcats. So for Unioto, they showed a lot of different ways to attack last week. With Ethan Sommer, they got Ty Woods Connor Dollison and kind of the sweep game, getting some of their athletes the ball. Caden Cutright did a really good job going out and, he had a fumble early, but really made up for it late. He's a big time playmaker for them. Ashton Crace with a kickoff return for a touchdown. Blake Hoops had 6 more catches on the year. They're just, it's going to be a game where it comes down to, in my opinion, Unioto's line against Paint Valley's line. They stepped up when they needed to last week against Zane Trace. Zane Trace had a couple of power running drives where they were able to score, but overall for the game, they weren't really able to move the ball much after those initial drives. Mm-hmm. And here's another fact. This is as a Unioto person. In the last 23 meetings, Unioto has won 5 times against Paint Valley.
It hasn't been too much.
No. And then I would say going back to the 90s, it's not been very often either.
I think we beat them my freshman year, and that was it. So I went 1-3. I didn't play, but
Right. Yeah, you're on the sidelines, so you're there in the spirit.
There we go.
But yeah, when I was in school, we did not beat them. We did not come remotely close to beating them. I think one of our biggest wins that year was only losing by 3 touchdowns my senior year.
There we go.
Yeah, we also didn't score, but ipso facto, they made it to the second round of the playoffs, so we competed. So yeah, it's a Paint Valley, like Nelsonville-York, is a really proud football community. If you've never been to a game at Paint Valley, it's a great atmosphere. They do a great job. Big scoreboard, beautiful field. If you get there and you can see the sun setting over the painted valley, I guess you can see it setting over the mountain, or not the mountains, but the hills. It's a beautiful setting. So that's a big time game. I'm sure we will have coverage there.
Yep.
Let me pull up our coverage to see what we got for that. That's we only have 2 games listed right now. So one is Vinton County at Nelsonville-York. One is Paint Valley at Unioto.
I think Derek
and Brock are on those 2. So I'm sure that those will get picked up.
Obviously Carson will go somewhere. I think Carson said if he wasn't going to Nelsonville, Carson's probably going to the Ironton Gallia game. Yeah. And then obviously we're headed to Portsmouth for that game. I don't think I've seen Tyler's name on there.
Not yet this week. So he might be at our game.
I just meant for like the past couple of weeks. I don't think I've seen him on there.
And let me look through the schedule real quick. Austin will probably be at Green at East.
Oh, Austin, man. Well, you gotta let us. We should pick where he goes.
Yeah, I know.
Derek doesn't know it. He's had a couple of good ones this year, but he's also had some.
He's had about 4 that weren't
some rough games. I was just looking at Sean Terry's Twitter to see where all he's gotten offers from. He has 9. I'm not sure if he's updated this, but he has 9 D1 offers. Iowa, Michigan State.
That was the last one I saw, was Michigan State.
Well, he posted the Iowa one 8 hours ago.
That might have been the explosion.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So Iowa, Michigan State, like you said, going on a visit to Michigan this weekend. Wisconsin, Eastern Michigan, West Virginia, which I think would be one of the cooler places to play. I know they've been down pretty much since like Pat White and Tavon Austin were there, and Geno Smith from like 2008 to whenever that was, like 2013. But I think West Virginia still has one of the better cultures and atmosphere. I mean, you
better like country roads though.
Yeah.
If you don't like country roads, don't go to West Virginia.
And they've just kind of renewed the backyard brawl, which I don't know why they ever got away from that. But me and my dad actually went to the last one they had.
Where was it at?
West Virginia, I believe.
Oh, so did you sing Sweet Caroline?
Oh man, me and my dad we've probably been to West Virginia like probably 6 times.
Nice.
I know this is a little different, but one time I know Pitt, which like I said a little different, but Pitt kind of plays, well now they play once again in the backyard brawl every year, but Pitt played at Cincinnati or Cincinnati played at Pitt, and we went to it for whatever reason. And LaShawn McCoy.
I was going to say James
McCoy,
Quanner.
LaShawn McCoy was playing for Pittsburgh at the time. And, like, that's stuff that, like, I don't even realize, like, because that was when I was, like, 6 or 7 or whatever. And I didn't even realize, like, I was telling you the other day about that 70-67 game we went to with Baylor and West Virginia. I think it was West Virginia's first, that was, like, the year after the Big East disbanded. And that was West Virginia's first Big 12 game. Jeez. And, like, obviously then I didn't know who Geno Smith was. And, like, one of the receivers for Baylor, I think it was Terrence Williams, and he played for the Cowboys for a couple of years. Also, Illinois is on here. I don't believe there are any. There may be some other ones from, like, a little while back that just aren't, like, on his immediate feed, and would probably take, like, Toledo. Toledo is his third, so there must be 2 more on here. I'm
probably
sure.
Not paying somebody to make edits every week of, like, the new offers and whatnot.
Oh, he also received a basketball offer from
Told you he's
Kentucky Christian.
supposed to be really good at basketball.
I
think they went back to D3 this year.
I don't believe. I mean, there's probably, like I said, there probably are still some on here from, like, a while ago. Like, there's a lot of Marshall stuff on here, so I'm assuming Marshall probably offered him.
Probably just
Toledo's
swam across the river and with an offer.
Massachusetts offered him.
Let's go.
Or UMass.
Let's go, Minutemen.
Some people, the Minutemen. UMass has a pretty cool stadium. It says UMass was his first offer, so I must have missed one in there somewhere. But once again, I'm guessing it's Marshall just based on all of the Marshall stuff I've seen. Oh no, it was Eastern Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
There you go. I think we got
Colonels.
Yeah, I think we got through all 9. But yeah,
I'm just gonna. Why is Colonels spelled like that?
What, COLNOLS or whatever?
Yeah, Colonels.
English sucks.
Yeah.
Although Spanish is, like, tearing me up right now, so.
Yeah. You get a little break, Sipu. Yeah.
It's a well-deserved. All right, so
Yes.
we'll wrap up whatever this has become with our power rankings. And
just so everyone knows, we are taping very late at night.
Oh, it's currently 11:45. I had a Spanish exam today, and yeah, it wasn't a fun day.
Did we go first on power rankings?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go first on power rankings.
This has just gone off the rails.
Yeah, so number 1, shocker, Ironton. I almost said the Ironman. Ironton has been, pretty dominant throughout the season, and it's going to take a lot to bump them from that spot. But Gallia Academy, with an upset this week, could do it. Jackson is my number 2 team. Number 3 is Logan Elm, who we did not talk about at all this week, but we will talk about next week as they got Hamilton Township in week 10. Fairland is my number 4. Wheelersburg, number 5. 6, the West Senators. Number 7 is Gallia Academy, the Blue Devils. Okay. I hope if they ever get turf that they just get blue turf.
Like Boise.
Yeah, just buy it. Just go all in on it. Like
anything but black turf. I forget.
Yes,
I know we talked about that. Some, like, Texas high school did, or maybe it wasn't somewhere where it's hot and, like, dudes, like, cleats are melting. Like, it's so stupid. Like, whoever's idea that was, like, if you're gonna do anything, get a white field with, like, black lines or something. Like, make it a little bit cooler.
Or if your university's gonna shut down, maybe get a new paint job on it.
Like, maybe don't buy a bunch of new athletic department related stuff.
Yeah. Number 8, I got Unioto. Number 9, with a tiebreaker finally, Paint Valley. And then Vinton County is my number 10. I got one directional school very close to jumping into the top 10. And Nelsonville is right there as well.
Yeah.
And Waverly is just really close as well. I mean, they just kind of.
Yeah, like I dropped. I'll just go through mine as well. So since you kind of already described, like, most of the teams, I don't really need to. Ironton in the 1, Jackson in the 2. This is where we're a little bit. You have Logan Elm a little bit higher than me. I have Fairland in the 3, Wheelersburg in the 4, West in the 5. Still have Logan Elm at 6. They'll probably, if they're able to get a win over Hamilton Township, maybe bump them back up a little bit. Gallia in the 7, Unioto 8, Vinton County 9, and then I slid Eastern Pike in there at the 10 spot.
So there's helmets.
Do what?
It's the helmets. They
Oh,
got
they
those
do.
awesome helmets.
Yeah, they do have really cool helmets. And then kind of like what you said, Waverly, like I don't like having Unioto in and Waverly out
Right.
because Waverly has the head-to-head. And like I can't even really use they have 3 losses excuse because I have Wheelersburg in the 4 and they have
Right.
3. Now the losses are a little bit different because Wheelers now not like all that different because I mean the Miami Trace loss like now doesn't look that great for Waverly, but like losing to West and Wheelersburg, it's like that's really not that bad.
Yeah.
But for Wheelersburg, you lose to Jackson and then Harvest Prep and then whoever else they lost to. It was another big time school. And
Ironton.
Ironton. Yeah, the best.
17-14, their closest game besides the Cable Midland game.
Yeah, I couldn't think of it, but like I don't know. We'll see what Wheelersburg has against West in Week 10, and that'll give us a little better look. Plus, Wheelersburg just hammered Waverly pretty bad, so I think that kind of warrants them being pretty
I was
pretty
impressed
high in
with Wheelersburg's win. I thought about bumping them over Fairland this week, but I pumped the brakes on it because I've been impressed with Fairland overall outside of Week 3. They've been really impressive. So,
And then kind of like what you said, for me, Paint Valley is right there. If they get a win over Unioto this week, like I honestly may just do a straight switch with Unioto and Paint Valley and just shoot.
well, because Paint Valley's been
into the
really
8.
impressive.
Right. It's just tough, especially when like a lot of the high caliber teams don't play each other until the end of the year. Sometimes you get teams that play like the first, like I know for a while it's been like Unioto ZT and Paint Valley all play each other in like the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. So, until they start playing in like weeks 4 and 5 or whatever, it's probably going to stay like that.
Well, my Twitter handle literally has SVC in it, so I'm kind of a homer on that. But I mean, there are 3 teams in the SVC that have 1 win.
Right.
So I mean, if you don't have 2 SVC teams in, I ain't worried about it because it's not been a very good conference this season, outside of the top 3.
Right. And then Nelsonville, right there, if they were to beat Vinton County, kind of the same case, that may just be a straight switch. I think you said Vinton County has won like 2 of the last 15 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, those are my top 10. I don't think there are any other bubble teams besides Paint Valley and Nelsonville. I know I named a couple last week. I think I said Hillsboro was one if they could somehow beat Jackson. And obviously that wasn't able to happen. So I think really the top 10 is more or less settled. I think once you get into the playoffs, it's kind of over with. I don't, because some teams are going to start to get eliminated and that, they're not going to have a chance to move up or down. And that's just kind of the end of it. So, kind of the last chance for Paint Valley or Unioto to move around, I would think. I mean, not really because Paint Valley has ZT in week 10, so that'll be a good matchup as well. But like for Nelsonville, I would say this is probably their last go at it too, because I think they play Vinton County plays Wellston.
They might play Alexander. Or
Cannot.
maybe it's Athens because that'd be a rivalry game.
That would make sense. I have Nelsonville's max preps pulled up so I can check it really quick. Yeah, Athens. So.
Yeah. So I do want to say my game to not watch, which was not teams within the area, finished 33-2 last week. So
33-2. That's insane. Do we have another one of those?
No, I don't.
No way.
I'm too tired.
No way. I was looking
All right,
forward to it.
give me a second.
I was looking forward. What game was it last? Wasn't it like...
It was Fisher Catholic and Millersport. Just being honest.
Well, and that's not Millersport. That's...
It's not that far from us.
Is that in the SVAC
That's in the MSL, the Cardinal. One.
Yeah.
Let's
see what
I don't want to go back to Fisher Catholic. That was, that was going to be Millersport or Fairfield Christian Academy at Millersport. But Fairfield Christian Academy is all right.
If I was a viewer, I would not watch Bishop Reedy. I would not watch Bishop Reedy against Bexley this week either.
How big is that line?
I don't have the line, but they're in the same conference, and Bishop Reedy is 7-1, and Bexley's 3-5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what division those teams are. Bishop Reedy has to be high. Bexley's got to be D1.
No, they're 3.
They're in Columbus, aren't they?
Outside, like it's in the
You think they're
suburbs.
D3?
They're in the burbs, yeah. Well, here's
Who played Bexley? Didn't Nelsonville play Bexley
yes.
on like a Thursday or something?
Yes, Lee.
So give me 1 second. I will actually find that. So Bexley on a Thursday, the line 36. What was the line? What was the line for yours? For Fisher?
42. It's Millersport. 44. I can find one real quick.
Yeah. Can you find like a 50-point spread?
I don't know if it'll be a 50-point, but it'll be ugly.
Like I want like a 1% chance for the other team to win.
Okay, so we got. Well, we're in that. That's too good of a side. I gotta get out of Division 1. Those teams are too
I just
good.
got one.
What is it?
Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy
Ooh.
taking on North College Hill. 40-point spread.
There we go.
99% chance for Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy to win. Don't watch that game.
Yes, don't watch that game.
And you know the funny thing is Cincinnati Christian Hills or whatever, Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy
The Eagles.
is 3-5.
Yeah,
But
they got an outside chance in the.
But North College Hill is 0-6.
Yeah,
next week I wouldn't watch their game against Summit Country Day either.
This is really frustrating to me that I can't think of North College Hill's mascot right offhand.
It is a team we'll see this weekend.
Trojans?
Yeah.
Yeah. So O.J. Mayo, before he got kicked out of the NBA, and Bill Walker, before he changed his name into something else.
Oh my gosh.
They played at North College Hill. Their center went to UAB. And at one point in the game, their center had to have like police around him on the bench because he had fouled someone so hard that the people were so mad. Like from
That's happened before.
What was the school? It wasn't North Canton. No, it was Canton McKinley, and Raymar Morgan, who went to Michigan State. They had a guy who went up for a dunk, went up for a windmill.
Oh, he probably pushed his legs out from under him or something.
It wasn't on that play, but he did something dirty. But the guy for Canton McKinley went up for a windmill dunk and lost it out of bounds. Then the center that went to UAB hit a baseline jumper at the buzzer to win it. And you've never heard a place boo more. And then I felt bad because Chillicothe had to play right after it because it was the main event. But it was like the old school wrestling main events where the main event wasn't the last thing.
So North College Hill will have played 8 games this year once the season's over. How many games do you think they've been, I don't know, not favored by 40?
0.
I just told you they were not favored by 40 for... How many times did you think the team they were playing was favored by 40?
8.
3.
Oh.
21, 26, 22. Whoa. Actually, they were favored by 22 week 3 and lost by 4 to Miami Valley Gaming, Miami Valley Christian Academy. What?
Miami Valley Christian Academy is one of the worst teams in the state.
And they lost to them 12-8. What do you think okay, so they were, man, this is bad. So Roger Bacon, which that's a name.
Sorry if Unioto ends up playing Roger Bacon.
On the playoffs?
It wouldn't be like a Clinton Massey, but it would be pretty bad.
They're 5-3.
Yeah.
So it says all D4.
That's when Mine Williams went.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So in that game...
The Baconators.
Please tell me that's not what they're called. So that game, Roger Bacon was favored by 44. What do you think the final was?
71-0.
48-2.
Oh, that's a really good line.
Safeties. Oh, yeah. That was a great line. I still don't know how they were favored by 22 and lost by 4, but oh man. But so the teams they've been playing have been favored by 21-26. They were favored by 22, so they've been favored in a game somehow. And 44, 18, 22, and then 40, and then so they're down 40 this week, and next week they head back home and they take on Purcell Marion.
Hey, it's a big Fort Ancient Conference matchup.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if
Purcell
that's still a
Marion's
thing.
favored by 43 points, so I would not watch that game either. This is great. We should have been doing this.
Yes,
every
as long as
week.
we're doing it, not our teams.
Somebody,
Fort Ancient Valley Conference no longer around.
this is great. Well, I wonder what their chances of making the playoffs are.
14-team split, FAVC in shambles from December 8th, 2010.
So listen to this. If if North College Hill is able to win and lose one of these next games, they have a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs.
Ooh.
At 1-7. So they got a shot. Now they're
You never know.
They're getting 40, so
Yeah,
I'm not
maybe they can cover.
Hey, I mean, if you cover, I mean, the last time they were down 40, they were down 44 and lost by 46. So, oh man, I don't even know how how do you beat a team by 40 and give up a safety? I don't even know.
Run out of the end zone.
To run out the clock at the end of the game. Do you remember last year at?
Turn around and punt it.
Do you remember last year at Miami Trace when Courthouse literally just held the ball for like 5 straight minutes and just nothing happened?
Yeah.
And like everybody started to stand up, and I think Ty was with us and had to like stand up with the camera. That was insane.
Yeah, you see some weird stuff in high school sports. So
All right, well,
let's get out of here.
yeah, I think it's literally 11:59 at night, and we're sitting here talking about.
I got a paper due in 3 hours, so
I don't have anything due, but I'm tired and I want to go.
let's go down to Minford today.
Yeah, here in what?
A few hours.
16 hours and 1 minute.
Yeah.
We'll be down there doing something, having a blast down in
let's go.
Falcon Town. I don't know. All right, well, that'll do it for today's episode.
Sorry if you stuck with us today.
Yeah, the last 10 minutes have just gotten pretty bad, but honestly, it's a pretty good summary of these past 2 episodes. But yeah, that'll do it for today's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.